Yeah, visible.
So we'll be talking about charging and regeneration. The basic agenda is like this. We'll see what the charging system is and why charging has to be monitored. There are different charging profiles, or the general charging profile is what we are going to see. Charging types, fast charger connector. So what are the components of the connector and how the assembly is generally looks like. Charging infrastructure comparison, onboard charger, and we'll see a little bit about how to select and maybe also see one video on that. Vehicle charge controller unit, VCCU also it is called, what it is for, and what does it do, to which things it is connected to. So these things we'll see, and then as we go towards the end, different standards of charging and wireless charging also we'll talk about a bit. Then the second important topic which we are going to discuss today is regenerative braking. In this again we'll have a bit of introduction of it, working principle of the regenerative braking, how it is controlled, tuning, that is blending with brake, and performance evaluation, pros and cons of regenerative braking and all. So without wasting time, let's start from the basic thing about EV infrastructure. So when you look at it from the charging side, how the so from the battery energy, how do you store the battery energy into the battery? That is done by two methods basically. Either you charge it on board, so through a onboard charger or offboard charger. The battery sits inside the vehicle and it is not moving. So you can also call these types of vehicles as maybe fixed battery vehicles. These types of charging things, these types of batteries are used generally in three-wheelers, also on two-wheelers as well. You might see them, and basically almost all four-wheelers and buses and trucks. So heavy applications wherein the battery pack becomes big. That is where charging it on board in the sense charging it on the vehicle is what is generally followed. So while charging the battery pack on the vehicle, it is done by two methods: onboard charging and offboard charging. Onboard charging means the AC charging spot is there. That means AC charging socket is needed. Only AC charging socket is needed to charge the vehicle. The charger which will convert the AC current into direct current DC is sitting inside the vehicle. So the charger which is converting AC to DC is sitting inside the vehicle in case of onboard charging. In case of offboard charging, the charger which converts AC to DC is outside the vehicle. It is generally in the charging station, also called as public charging station. Most of the times the DC fast chargers are almost like it is a now become a rule that all the public charging stations, they have DC fast chargers wherein you have DC current directly going inside your vehicle. Now this type of charging is not generally done for two-wheelers and three-wheelers because their battery pack sizes are small, and the current ratings for which the DC fast chargers are manufactured or designed, and the voltages for which they are manufactured and designed, that is maybe can become too much overkill for two-wheeler and three-wheeler applications because their battery packs are smaller, 1.5 kilowatt to 7 kilowatt like that, wherein the fast chargers, DC fast chargers are available up to the capacity of like 160, 300 kilowatt like that. So you can imagine connecting a small battery pack to such a big source, that will be overkill for the battery pack, and that will be underutilization of the fast charger, and that will also mean that the facility which is created for larger battery packs is being used for smaller battery packs. So the owner of the charger, owner of the public charging station may not be getting so much good revenue out of it. So the charges for which the battery pack is getting charged, that might be higher, and the user has to pay little bit more fees, because this has now become a the unit through which you are charging is costing higher. On going to the right hand side, where you will see swapping, wherein the battery pack whole as a whole is replaced. And in that case, again, this is something which is available for mostly two-wheelers and three-wheelers currently. And but at the same time, you will see that swapping is being talked about for four-wheelers and bus application, truck application as well. In India, you'll see that for bus application, it was demonstrated by Ashok Leyland in collaboration with what is that company called? Chetan Maini's company, Sun Mobility. So yeah, Sun Mobility and Ashok Leyland had demonstrated use of swapping battery packs for buses quite a while ago, and for four-wheelers, there are new vehicles which are coming up. There is something coming up from GM. There is something coming up from Honda as well. Honda, I guess the name of the vehicle is R1, which is electric vehicle with swappable battery pack, which also is a kind of configurable battery pack as well. So you can order a vehicle for the pack sizes, different pack sizes. It can be smaller like 30 kilowatt as well. It can be larger like 120 kilowatt as well, 120 kilowatt hour. So these type of solutions are also coming up. In case of swapping type of battery packs, the charging of the batteries is done at a charging station, which is, or you can call it maybe swapping station. And the swapping station owner will charge the battery pack by themselves. And when you go for the swapping, the batteries are exchanged and you are charged for, you will be charged for the amount of energy which you buy from them and not for the battery pack itself. So if you are giving a battery pack which is having 0% SOC, taking a battery pack which is having 100% state of charge, and then in that case you'll be charged for this 100% state of charge and nothing more. Charging the batteries, we have actually seen this in brief during our battery technologies topic, I guess, on that day, that there are some safety risks associated with batteries when you are overcharging them or over discharging them. And in that case, so safety risks like batteries are vulnerable to number of potential problems, overheating of the anode, oxygen production due to overcharging at the cathode, and that means that the cathode is now getting kind of reduced more than it requires, and that might pose some safety risks. So safety risks like dissolution of the materials in the electrolyte unwantedly, and cycle life degradation because of multiple things. Firstly, the one which is more talked about is the solid electrolyte interface formation, SEI formation, and anode degradation, which is reducing the cycle life of the cell. So in this case, the solid electrolyte layer gets formed. Again, this layer is there in all the batteries, in all the battery types, and all the lithium-ion batteries. And it is also good to have that layer, but too much of that layer creates a risk for the battery. So a small portion of SEI in a few nanometers is good for the batteries to perform well. That it actually increases the efficiency of the cell and also make sure that the cells have a very good cycle life. But too much of solid electrolyte interface creates dendritic growth on the anode, and this dendritic growth might puncture the separator and go to the other side. And if it goes to the other side, you know what will happen. Then it has contact with cathode. So anode and cathode internally, if they get shorted with each other, that will obviously create so much of electron flow through a very small these dendrites, and that will create finally a very high amount of heat generation. Eventually, you'll see that the cells are burning or getting vented, or kind of you might see blast of the whole battery pack as well. And this might start with one single cell and get propagated to the other cells which are in the vicinity of such cells. The other problem which we might face during charging is lithium plating, which happens because of high charge rates at higher state of charge limit. So if you now, as we go to the next slides, you will find that the charging happens through a mode called as CCCV mode. So there is a constant current region during which the current is higher and voltage is increasing. And then comes a constant voltage region wherein the current reduces, the voltage remains same. And if you want to pour in more current or more electrons per unit time or more charge per unit time, in that case you will need to increase the voltage. So if you increase it beyond a particular limit unnecessarily, then too much rush of the lithium ions create a kind of you can say crowd of the lithium ions on the anode side, which creates lithium plating eventually. And this lithium plating will completely bar the anode from again releasing the lithium ions into the electrolyte or towards the cathode. That will reduce the capacity of the cell initially. And if this plating increases beyond certain limit, then it again creates a dendritic growth, which while if it penetrates the separator and goes to the other side, will create short, internal short, and the other things which I explained just now. So finally venting or burning or blasting of the cells. A fully charged battery has lower thermal runaway. So this is kind of the process which it follows while it goes to a thermal runaway. Now, sometimes this thermal runaway is triggered by such internal short conditions. Sometimes it is triggered by maybe external higher temperature conditions. So if the charger or if the charger keeps on charging the battery, even if the battery temperature is high, then it might go to this thermal runaway temperature from where there is no returning back, and will finally give rise to venting of the cell. And venting of the cell here means the cell releases a high amount of gases out, the gases which are created because of the irreversible reactions which are taking place inside because of again higher temperature. So as you might have studied in your chemistry classes when you were studying in schools, that some reactions take place at particular temperature only, and that catalytic temperature creates a boost for the reactions to take place at only that particular temperature. And if that temperature is reached, then only you'll see this reaction taking place. That is what is dangerous for the lithium-ion batteries, which we are studying here now. When it goes to this thermal runaway temperature, generally it is above 100 degrees centigrade for most of the cells. For LFP cells, it is even higher than 200-300 degrees centigrade. And again, this depends on which type of cell you are using, subtype of the cell you are using. Inside LFP, again, multiple chemistries are there. You might have additives which are placed inside by the manufacturers, which will again change the properties of the materials and the way the reactions are happening. That also changes the thermal runaway temperature, but it is generally higher than 100 and 120 degrees centigrade for most of the cells. So if this temperature is crossed, then the thermal runaway reaction starts, and that will end only when the cell is vented, unless you take out a huge chunk of energy from the cell immediately as soon as this particular temperature is reached. And there are some methods from wherein you can do that. High C rates and high cell temperatures give rise to degradation of the battery cycle life. This we have been seeing from last couple of sessions now. So this is what the charging profile I was talking about, wherein you can see that there are multiple stages. The first stage is the constant current mode. I hope you can see my cursor. The first stage is the constant current mode, wherein the current is constant, blue color line. Current is constant and voltage is increasing. At the same time, this green color line must be state of charge or charge capacity. This also is increasing linearly here. So when the current is constant, obviously the state of charge will increase linearly because, as we know, this is like amount of charge which is going. Current is amount of charge per unit time. So if you plot the amount of charge itself, absolutely, then it will be linear growth. In this case, red color line is showing how the voltage is behaving. So voltage is increasing when the current is constant here in the constant current region, stage 1. As soon as the voltage reaches to its maximum. Now for this cell it is 4.2 volts. As soon as it reaches to its maximum, that is 4.2, the voltage increase has been stopped. And now the current is reducing. Voltage is now constant. Higher voltage might damage the battery. That's why voltage is now kept constant. Or and in that case, as the voltage is constant, the current will reduce. And why is that? Because the resistance is constant. Let's say you can also imagine it that way. The resistance is constant, voltage is constant. As the cell is getting charged, the resistance is increasing, and that may give rise to reduction of the current. Or you can also think about it as if the capacity of the cell to accommodate those many electrons on the anode side, or those many positive ions on the anode side, is getting reduced as the number of ions which are coming towards it are getting increased, as in the number of ions it is already accommodating. So here stage 1 applies bulk charge under constant current, and this is where the fast charging of the cells happen. So if you see in most of the cases wherein the OEMs, automotive OEMs which are launching EVs, and also the ones which are launching battery packs, they're talking about fast charging capabilities. Even in case of your mobile phones, the fast charging happens only up to certain limit. So in this case, you can see that it is like 40 minutes, it says, which is roughly about 66%. And this is where the point will come wherein there is a 70%. So this kind of turnaround happens at around 70%. This point will also depend on what chemistry you have and what sub chemistry you have, and so on. So the curves what we are referring to has to be provided by the cell manufacturer. Now the point where the slope is changing here, point where the voltage is now becoming constant, that is where your fast charging capabilities vanish now. But you can see that the current is still higher till maybe about 50 minutes or so, and in these 50 minutes it is charging close to about 70% of the battery. And that's what the OEMs which are making mobile phones and other fast charging lithium ion battery applications like laptops maybe, or in our case electric vehicles, they say that up to 70% or 80% of charge you can charge within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like that. And that is coming from this particular chart. The stage 2 is wherein the charge is in the constant voltage mode. Stage 3 is the ready mode, wherein no charge is being applied because the battery is completely charged now. While doing so, the charging is done by to this particular method, which is called pulse and burp, wherein the charging pulse is applied. So this is a general charging method. Not necessarily every time it is the same. You might also apply constant current, but that has some limitations. So that's why this pulse and burp method has come up. Pulse chargers feed the charging current to the battery in pulses. Charging rate can be precisely controlled while varying the width of the pulses. Typically, it is about 1 second. So you have a charging pulse of about 1 second, and then there is a gap, resting period given. This resting period during the charging process, short rest periods of about 20 to 30 milliseconds between the pulses allow chemical actions in the battery to stabilize. So this is where this particular period plays a very important role. This allows you to charge again with more current, because now the equilibrium has reached kind of, but it is close to equilibrium, not complete equilibrium. Used in conjunction with the pulse is the burp charging, which applies a short discharge pulse. So what you see here is blue color line, discharge pulse of about 5 milliseconds during the charging period to depolarize the cell. So this is where depolarization means you are again making sure that the voltages are nominal, or voltages are to a level wherein you can again apply high pulse charge. The pulses dislodge any gas bubbles. This is another advantage of the pulses, that they dislodge the gas bubbles, which speeding up the stabilization process, and hence overall charging process gets speeded up. That means you can again apply more amount of charge and the charging happens within shorter period. We'll see that the charging happens through basically 4 modes of charging are there. The modes are called named after numbers, mode 1, 2, 3, 4, and the way they work, that is explained here in this picture now. So what you can see is during mode 1, just zoom in there. During mode 1, there is direct connection of the vehicle to the grid. So you read all these things clearly so that you can understand how the modes are different than each other. So this is where the direct connection is there of the vehicle to the grid through your home socket. So generally this is the charging method which is used at home. You can also relate all these modes with respect to your mobile phone charging methods as well. Okay, so for all the lithium-ion batteries it is applicable, may it be mobile phone, laptop, or may it be electric vehicle, electric two-wheeler, car, bus, whatever it is. Non-dedicated power socket, generally domestic socket, is there, and simple cable, risk of overheating. So this is a method wherein you don't have any charge monitoring, wherein the cable which you are using doesn't matter, wherein the charger which you are using doesn't matter. The phone or your battery will accept the charge as soon as the charger is connected to the socket here, domestic power socket, and the current which is flowing through the circuit is not controlled. There is no controller which is controlling the current flow, and this is why you have risk of overheating, because even if the battery is completely charged, there is nobody to take care of that. So you are not knowing whether the battery is charged, or kind of there is no controller which is switching off the charging by its own. So the user has to kind of stop charging the battery by himself or herself. And this is the method you might remember was used in very old Nokia phones. The chota pin wala, bada pin wala charger, you might remember that. So this method was used on in those chargers wherein there was no control over how the battery was getting charged. So you have to yourself kind of disconnect the charger from the battery so that battery gets protected. And if you by chance charge it overnight every day, you are risking your battery because you are overcharging the battery all the time, and that might give rise to risk of overheating. That might, you might also see that your batteries are bulging as the time passes, and there comes one day when they stop working, or they get punctured, or they get kind of blown so much that they cannot be fitted in the mobile phone, or if you still continue to use them, still continue to charge them, they might blast as well. And that's why this type of charging is prohibited in most of the countries, including US. And these types of chargers are there still in India. So I remember maybe about few years ago, there were also chargers which were called Khekda chargers for all the types of batteries, wherein the mobile phone batteries were removable. And so those chargers were also using the similar type of charging method, not monitored. That's why it is having very low acceptance, and currently there are almost like no chargers which are doing so. That's the mode 2 charging has direct connection again to the grid of the vehicle and has a non-dedicated power socket again, so you can plug into the same domestic socket. But here the cable has a communicating charge monitoring device, wherein this charge monitoring device is taking care of communication with the vehicle. It might also communicate with the charger unit inside this box again. So what you see is this small gray color box which is in the middle on the cable. So these types of boxes you will also see in your laptop chargers. So that is a mode 2 charging, and they have a charge monitoring device in them. So the current which is flowing through the system, they monitor it. The voltage at which the system is working, they also monitor it. So if you have a battery pack in the vehicle, it knows what is the voltage of the battery pack, and based on that it either charges the battery or stops charging. And that's why these types of chargers are currently more prominent. This one, if you again talk about mobile phones here, the same unit sits inside your charger box, which you are directly attaching to the socket here. Mode 3 charging again has a direct connection of the vehicle to the grid, dedicated power socket incorporating charge monitoring device and dedicated cable. So here you have a power socket which is dedicated. You cannot plug the charger to any domestic socket because you have a dedicated power socket. So this might be industrial connector as well. This might be any other AC connector as well, AC regulated connectors as well. And it also has a dedicated cable. So you might also see this type of charging system also is there in some of the mobiles as well. So you'll see that if the cable is changed, the charging is slow. If the connector is changed, the charging is slow. If the charger is changed, the charging is slow. If the mobile phone, or in our case EVs, is changed, the charging is slow. So you have a dedicated power socket which works with this charging principle. You have dedicated cable and you have a dedicated battery as well. So you have all these three things work in a sync, and any of these three things changed, the charger does not work in mode 3, it goes back to mode 2. So that type of smart chargers are there. Mode 4 is the one wherein there is a indirect connection. So till this point, yeah.
So lower part of the PPT is not visible for everyone. I think it's
yes, I'm zooming in. I'm zooming in.
Okay. They asked me.
I'm zooming in. If you want, I can zoom out, not a problem. So we'll come to that. Mode 4 is the one wherein there is indirect connection of the vehicle to the grid. The charger which converts AC to DC sits in a outside box. It is not in the vehicle. And direct current external charger incorporating charge monitoring device. There is also dedicated cable. In this case as well, the cable, the charger and the vehicle, they are to be of the standard which works on mode 4. inside all these mode 1, 2, 3, 4, there are again level 1, 2, 3s as well. So they might also be called with numbers, level 1, level 2, level 3 charger. And as you can see, for AC, level 1 might be 120 or 230 volts. So 120 for countries like US, wherein the voltage of the grid is 120, voltage of the domestic supply is 120. And in case of Indian applications, it is 220 or 240 volts, 230 volts, like that. And level 1 charging generally has 1.9 kilowatt in case of US applications, and in our case it is close to 3 kilowatt. Level 2 charging has again similar voltages but higher current. So level 2 charging is not possible with mode 2 because you have non-dedicated socket, and non-dedicated socket limits the current which flows through the system. So level 2 charging happens only in mode 3 and mode 4. Level 3 charging also happens only in mode 3 and mode 4. Level 1 to 3 is based on how much current is flowing through the charger or how much power is flowing through the charger. And mode 1, 2, 3, 4 is based on what kind of charge monitoring device is there and where it is placed, who is converting AC to DC, and so on. And same way the principle applies to DC charging as well. So if you look at the vehicle once again, you'll see that there is one onboard charger which is communicating with the battery management system BMS. BMS is sitting inside the battery pack. So the OBC, onboard charger, always knows what is the battery status. So if you connect the plug to a socket, then it communicates with the BMS, understands what is the charging current allowed, and based on that the current is given to the battery pack. Okay. In case of DC fast charging system, the BMS directly communicates with outside fast charging interface, and this communication then once get established, then the DC fast charging starts. So here there is no onboard charger in the middle, so you will not see any onboard charger coming in between, but there is a vehicle charge controller in it. VCCU is always there, which will communicate with the DC fast charging station and BMS. So different types of things which are communication things are there. The communication components are there which are doing the similar jobs. Either they are combined in one particular PCB. So the same VCCU can be inside a vehicle controller, that is VCU. The same VCCU can be separate from the vehicle controller. It might be called a separate VCCU as well, like that. So it depends on how the design is being made by OEM. When you are connecting a battery pack through onboard charger, it is AC charging what you are doing because there is AC current which is going to the system. When you are connecting the battery directly to the DC fast charging station, DC charging is what is being done here. We can take a look at some of the charging sockets and plugs here. So the connector looks like this for CHAdeMO. We'll again take a look at them once again in the next slides, but just for the sake of understanding it more clearly. So while this is happening, the dedicated power socket which was meant in mode 2 and mode 3 and mode 4 are these power sockets. So when you have a AC power supply which is having, if you want to give AC power supply to the vehicle, direct AC, in that case you need to use AC of the CHAdeMO, AC of the GB/T, or combo like that. Okay, and so this is the plug which is used on the vehicle side connector, and this is the vehicle inlet. So this type of port you see on the vehicle itself. The communication protocol used by GB/T and CHAdeMO is CAN. CHAdeMO just now, so CHAdeMO and GB/T is CAN, and combo type of chargers like CCS chargers are using PLC type, which is power line communication protocols. Charging modes, let's try to understand this. Charging modes again. So as we talked about it, vehicle charger, the onboard charger, if it is of 7 kilowatt capacity, and the charge monitoring device, which is used in between, has a 3 kilowatt capacity. Domestic power supply socket has 2 kilowatt capacity, then charging will happen at 2 kilowatt, weakest of these three. Same way for the fast charging. Let's say you are charging at fast mode. Vehicle is having 7 kilowatt capacity of charging. That means the battery can only accept 7 kilowatt of power. Cable is manufactured for 7 kilowatt, and that is known by the vehicle or by the charger that this is the cable which is being used of 7 kilowatt capacity. Then the charging is happening at 7 kilowatt because the 7 kilowatt is the least of these three numbers. Even if the charging point can deliver 22 kilowatt, it will not deliver 22 but deliver only 7. Let's read through the slide. So you need to have a exclusive transformer for your own charging station, a separate transformer. So similar to what the big societies, if you might have seen that they have their own transformer, and this is because the load which comes on the system because of the PCI, public charging infrastructure, which will have 4 or 5 different chargers placed in it at multiple numbers. So let's say if there is a PCI system which is having 50 odd number of chargers of 60 kilowatt capacity. So this in total becomes if all of them are operating at same time, then this in total becomes 50 into 60 is close to 3 megawatt capacity. So close to 3 megawatt of power if we are drawing from the grid, it is better to have a separate transformer because you will be delivered power in high voltage and you will be converting that through transformer here at your local station and then delivering it to the vehicles. And that's why a separate transformer is generally needed. 33 or 11 kV lines come towards, so 33 or 11 kV lines are having generally termination at these PCIs, public charging stations, and charging station for 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, free to install any other charges outside the mentioned in table below. So you need to actually go through this particular PCI requirement document, which is available on government websites, and see how to install 2-wheeler or 3-wheeler charging station. There are also different courses run by MSME all over India for how to install a public charging station. Almost every weekend they used to do that before the lockdown came in. Tie up with at least one network service provider, NSPs, to enable telematics based services. So there are charge monitoring devices on each of the chargers, and all the chargers are connected to one central cloud based charge monitoring service, CMS you can say. And so this is either third party or if you are yourself installing, if the company which has made this charge monitoring device or charging infrastructure monitoring system, then you can use your own as well. So like that, but that has to be there. There has to be a telematics based service as well. Share charging data with DISCOMs, which is DISCOM is a distribution company, electricity distribution company, and adhere to protocols as prescribed by the Central Electricity Authority, CEA. These are the chargers which are mandatory to be installed at a charging station. So as you can see, there is at least 5 chargers you need to install like this. Firstly, coming up with a CCS type charger, which is having minimum 50 kilowatt of capacity, rated voltage of 200 to 750 volt for on the vehicle side, and vehicle type generally which is using CCS type is 4-wheeler or buses and so on. Then CHAdeMO type of charger of minimum 50 kilowatt capacity. Again, voltages in the similar range to be used by 4-wheelers, buses, trucks and so on. Type 2 AC charger, which is again CCS type 2 AC charger. Type 2 AC means CCS type 2 AC with minimum 22 kilowatt and voltages of 380 to 415 to be used by 4-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 2-wheelers because the capacity is 22 kilowatt. And apart from these fast chargers, there are some slow chargers are to be installed. So there is a Bharat DC and Bharat AC charging system. So Bharat DC you need to have at least one charger, 48 volt or 72 volt for 4-wheelers, 3-wheelers and 2-wheelers. And Bharat DC 15 kilowatt of 72 volt plus for 4-wheelers. So there are some vehicles, the vehicles which are being launched in India, they are of different types of, so they have a different types of charging systems which they are adhering to, and government itself has not made mandatory for any of the charging systems, so they are not inclined towards any of the charging systems. They are themselves in the dilemma that which might be better for us. The CCS type is coming from European company, CHAdeMO is coming from the Japanese companies. There is also GB/T charging, which is having a CCS type of socket. So GB/T coming from Chinese standards, and we have our own Bharat DC standards again. So government is currently in a dilemma to decide whether to go with GB/T, CHAdeMO or CCS or Bharat DC AC. Bharat DC AC currently are having limited power output because the voltages are lower. Now here maybe after maybe 1 year or couple of years the picture will be more clear, and then these norms may get modified, but this is just a speculation. We don't know whether it will happen very soon, but eventually it will happen because that is how we can grow. Charging types, different international standards. So as you can see, the first one is a new GB/T, which is having more power because higher voltage of 1500 volts and 600 ampere current, up to 900 kilowatt it can be used. Number of control pilot pins are 2, and communication is through CAN. CAN is a protocol, communication protocol. 12 volt power supply to EV is not there, and vehicle to different kind of sources and sinks supply, whether it is there or not, it is still unknown because this particular standard is just launched and there are some things which are not yet clear. Coupler lock is at the inlet, and availability is in currently PRC, People's Republic of China. Related standards are IEC 61851, 23.1 number clause and 23-2 clause. Liquid cooled cable is there under development because as you can see the current is of 600 amperes, and when the 600 amperes current is flowing through wire, you need to either have very big wire size, or you can maybe survive with smaller wire diameter and having water cooling or liquid cooling accommodated in the same. So the charging cables for all these different standards which are having very high current, most of them they are having liquid cooled charging cables. So GB/T, old GB/T 950 by 250 amperes, 237 kilowatt max power. Again, it was having CAN communication. Optional 12 volt power supply was there, and vehicle to load, vehicle to home, vehicle to grid, vehicle to vehicle type of charging. It is still under development, not yet available, but that is recently CHAdeMO has launched a system which is having vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to grid, vehicle to home type of connectivity. So here what happens is the vehicle's battery can be used. Vehicle's battery can be used by home to power a home, or it can be used to give the electricity back to the grid, or it can be used to give electricity to the other vehicle as well. So that is what this V2L, V2H, V2G, V2V, or also combinedly called as V2X type of charging systems. Other chargers like CHAdeMO, I just explained. CCS has about max capacity of 400 kilowatt. There is a power line communication in the CCS, but some type. So recently again, CCS has also said that it will launch a CAN type of CAN communication type of CCS charger now. 12 volt power supply to EV is not there, and vehicle to X type of applications are under development. Coupler is again on the inlet side, so mechanical coupler is there. Availability is in the Europe, US, South Korea, Australia. So this is where these companies are using. So Korean companies mostly have CCS. Even in Kia, you'll find CCS charger. Related standards are again same 61851. So everywhere you'll see that the same standard is being referred to. Nodes liquid cooled is under development. Liquid cooled cable discontinued by Tesla because it was not needed in the area where they serve. Charger implementation in the vehicle. So just go through the picture here, and by the time let me have a 5 minutes break. So what you see here is on one side 2 kilowatt to 20 kilowatt single phase 3-phase AC supply. There is a metering and billing system in the public charging. There are safety interlocks making sure that the charger is connected to the vehicle and this connection is ensured. Then this AC bus which is going towards the rectifier. The rectifier converts this AC into DC, and then there can be a DC to DC converter. It may be there, may not be there. And there is a variable DC supply giving to the battery. So this whole thing is your charger, onboard charger. Giving variable DC output, there is a protection circuit. So protection circuit can be your BMS, which is triggering some switches here, switches like contactors, or there can be a fuse. There can be, in some cases, you might also find MCB used just to save cost. In case of level 3 type of systems, wherein level 3 DC charger is there, the charger itself gives DC supply. The safety interlocks will always be there to ensure that the connector on the charger side and on the vehicle side, it is connected properly and secured. Once it is secured, then safety interlocks are active, and then the charging can commence. The variable DC supply is directly given to the battery through protection circuit. So protection circuits will again always be there. What we are skipping is the onboard charging. So in case of DC charging, DC fast charging, there is no onboard charger coming into picture, and everything is the communication is directly between BMS and the charging station. So what you see here is this communication line. CAN bus control and authentication line, which is coming towards charging station here. And in case of AC charging system, it was communicating with the onboard charger. Okay, so this is how charging works internally on the vehicle side. Charging infrastructure comparison, AC level 1, level 2, DC fast charging, DC high power charging. Power requirements or kind of the power requirements of the charging units, the charging stations themselves are like this: 1.9 up to 19 kilowatt, up to 50 kilowatt, up to 350 kilowatt or higher. Charging time again based on a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack size. It might need about 16 hours to charge at home using 2 kilowatt charger. It might take about 2 to 12 hours based on what is the capacity of the level 2 charger. It might take about 20 to 40 minutes through DC fast charging, and it might take about only 6 to 8 minutes through a high power charging. In this case, the most of the times the charger is residential charger. This also is residential charger. This one is the public charger, and this is direct to grid charger. So wherein you are having this 11 kV line coming to your charging station, and you have a single charger, which is, because it is of so huge capacity, maybe you can run 1 or 2 of these type of charging stations, like having 350 kilowatt of power. Charger pinouts for AC level 1 and level 2 charging. So you might see there is a control pin, there is a proximity pilot pin, protective earth pin, neutral pin, L1, L2, L3 for 3-phase AC power, L1 only for single phase AC power, L2 and L3 for neutral and power. So this is how many pins are there then? So in this case, AC vehicle connector type 1, there are 5 pins, as you can see, L1, L2 and L2 are neutral. This is the control pin. This is the control pilot pin. This is the protective earth pin. And this is proximity. In case of CHAdeMO charger, this is how it looks: L1, L2, L3, neutral, control pilot, earth, and proximity pilot. So all these pins have different function to play. Control pilot communications used to relay data between the car and charger about how much charge is needed. Proximity pilot that makes sure that you are plugged in all the way. That means the connection is proper and the charger is connected completely. If the charger is not connected to its full depth, then again, as this is the lesser area of contact available, you cannot charge through high current, and that's why you need to make sure that the proximity pilot is active, and that means that this pin will be kind of shortest pin on the connector. So the shortest pin will be proximity pilot. Make sure that the connector is connected to the charger and to the vehicle as well properly. For DC, there are 2 additional pins in case of CCS combo charger. So CCS combo charger, the top function, the pins at the top, they serve the similar purpose. Only thing is L1, L2, L3 will not be active, and other pins will be doing the same functions. So here, as you can see, there is no 12 volt DC supply in case of CCS2, and that might hamper its performance or might not make it available for vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to grid type of applications. Adds 2 additional pins for DC fast charging, DC positive and negative, the biggest ones of them. So what you can see is these big rounds are the DC pins using common communication line. The communication line will be same. CHAdeMO has 2 separate connectors for DC and AC. So CHAdeMO connector is completely different than this type 2. This is its AC connector and this is its DC connector. So for DC you will see that it is separate from AC. While in this CCS type it is combo. Combo means the connector is same. If it is running through AC, then only top portion comes into action. If it is running as DC, then both of them come into action. Fast charger connector, it again has multiple parts, like this is the replaceable mating face frame. Replaceable because this is the part which will have more wear and tear. Replaceable DC contacts with integrated temperature sensors. So this is the part again which will have more wear and tear. So this has to be replaceable. And it also has a temperature sensor inside it to make sure that again the connection is proper and the contact is made proper and the contact resistance is as low as possible. And also making sure that the connector is not heating up too much so that the connection pins themselves, the connector itself starts burning because of the very high temperature. So that's why the temperature sensor is there installed inbuilt in the DC contacts. The contact carrier with outstanding thermal conductivity. So this is the one which will carry the current through the cable. And then there is environmentally sound low maintenance coolant line. So this one is the coolant line, blue color line. Integrated leakage sensor for increased safety. So there is a sensor installed inside the cable as well and inside the connector as well, which will make sure that there is no leakage of this coolant anywhere in the system. Onboard charger is used in electric vehicle or hybrid hybrid plug-in vehicles to charge the traction battery. OBC converts AC to DC on the vehicle itself. Variety of signal conditioning solutions and integrated high voltage isolation offerings, including isolated gate drivers, are part of the vehicle charge control unit. Only used for 4-wheelers and above. Cost and weight are a major factor for 2-wheeler and 3-wheeler applications. So chargers like this, which are having communication, they are costing a little bit higher on the side. So to just give you a rough estimate, maybe for a 2 kilowatt charger, you might have to spend about 30,000 rupees, which might be a cost of some of the 2-wheelers themselves. The cost which I am telling you is for single quantity, but still it is close to 2-wheeler cost, and you cannot afford to give a charger which is costing as good as 2-wheeler, and that's why these onboard charging is generally not preferred for 2-wheelers and 3-wheeler application. And that is where the swapping plays a important role, wherein the charger cost is shared by multiple users. 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler applications have considerably smaller as well as removable batteries that can be charged at home or office, and that's why vehicle charging is not needed most of the times. Onboard charger selection, how do you do that? So to select onboard charger, you need to know what is the charge voltage, you need to know what is the charging rate, current, and also C rate of the battery. So finally, current and voltage is what is necessary to be known. Input voltage, whether it is 3-phase or 2-phase, and what is the voltage, 110 or 250, 260, like that for input voltage side. So whether it is made for US type of applications or Indian applications, UK applications, like that, based on voltages. Max input power for 3-phase, maybe for onboard it is 22, but what is that what you need? So just like earlier somebody asked a question about what should be the charging capacity. So although this 7.3 kilowatt charger is available, but might be overkill for you, because you might not need this charger. Even 2 kilowatt is sufficient for you if you are able to survive with 4 hours of charging. Output of the charger. So how much maximum voltage it can give, and what is the, so this will decide whether it can be used for your battery. So the battery's voltage, high and low should match with output of the charger's voltage. So the charger's output voltage must be available within this range of high and low charging voltage. Efficiency, if it is more than 91%, it is good. But again, for low cost applications, you might not find this good efficiency. About 85% is what generally seen in most of the charging systems, and 91 and above is available for the good quality charging systems, which are having very good efficiency and also eventually higher cost as well. Power factor 0.95 for the better ones. The cooling type generally liquid. Communication generally CAN. Safety, whether the reverse current, overcurrent protection is there or not. So even if you connect it in other way around, it will still perform or might not burn itself and might give a warning that you might have connected the connector in a wrong way, or the cables themselves are in the wrong fashion, connected in reverse way. Power density of 2 kilowatt or higher. So this is how the onboard charger selection goes. Let's watch one video about onboard charger.
Evolving EV technology and infrastructure make it challenging for OEMs to cost-effectively develop the charging solutions to handle multiple electrical inputs and satisfy the unique requirements of each customer segment. Eaton's onboard chargers, or OBCs, allow EV drivers to charge anywhere there is AC power, not just at charging stations. Eaton's OBC design allows for customization and expandability, enabling reduced development costs, ease of assembly, extreme durability, and allows for worldwide configuration. Our scalability allows the OEM to optimize the size of the OBC to support their objectives. Eaton is developing OBC.
Is the audio of the video available? Is it audible?
Yeah, it's
Power levels from 3 kilowatts to 22 kilowatts, support single or three-phase power, and handle a wide range of input voltages. We are also developing bi-directional capabilities that will allow use of the energy in the vehicle battery for export power. This energy exporting can be used to power standard electrical loads, standby power for the home, charge another EV, or eventually help provide stability to the electrical grid. Eaton's onboard chargers are over 95% efficient, which maximizes charge rate. The OBCs also achieve state-of-the-art power density of 2 kilowatts per liter, meaning the units take up less space in the vehicle. The OBC communicates with control modules in the vehicle through the CAN protocol. Eaton's onboard chargers provide a modular design to reduce development costs, provide worldwide configuration with fast, smart charging capability, and extreme durability, allowing OEMs to reduce time, cost, and risk.
Vehicle charge control unit VCCU has interaction with CCS2 inlet. So this is controller currently written in a fashion that it is connected with CCS2 type of charger. Coordination of charging related vehicle functions, coordination of high voltage switches between inlet and outlet DC link, vehicle state management according to charging schedule, so either wake up or sleep, communication with customer backend. So it is basically a unit which will kind of manage the charging overall on the vehicle side. It needs to communicate with the outside charger, needs coordination with the vehicle functions, needs coordination with the inlet and DC link. So if the charging is AC charging or DC charging. Based on that, it needs to either communicate with the onboard charger or offboard charger. It also maybe wakes up or asks the vehicle to go into sleep mode. Communication with the customer backend, wherein it is communicating with the either VCU or directly communicating directly to the customer backend of the OEM, wherein the data of charging and charging of the vehicle either through onboard or offboard charging. So that data is maintained by OEs to just to maybe more analyze the vehicle's behavior in different conditions and different geographical areas. Major international charging standards. (17409), 18246, 62196 for plug socket and vehicle couplers on the IC side. SAEJ 1772 for North American EVs and covers physical, electrical, communications, performance requirements. 61851 for EVSE, EV supply equipment or charger. For Indian applications, AIS 138 part 1 and part 2, there are AC and DC charging standards which are explained. All these standards are generally deriving reference from IC or ISO standards or ASAE standards, all of them, so including GB/T as well. AC slow charging, AC fast charging, so all these things are being explained in AIS 138 part 1, part 2.